There shall be signs in the sun, moon, and stars. We're going to talk about a planet alignment that is happening right now through June. Very interesting stuff. I want to start off with some interesting Israel news, Israel focused news that you may have not heard before. And this is possibly related to Israeli Mossad action against Iranian leaders and military leaders, covert operations. This is an interesting one. Iranian general dies following illness. General Maradi, key figure in the IRGC's foreign wing, dies following an illness. Iranian state TV reports. He is one of the commanders and a key figure of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard foreign wing, and he died following illness. Maradi was a comrade of Soleimani, who was killed in a U.S. Strike. So he goes on and talks about his funeral. What I think is interesting about this is how high this guy is up and who he knew, who he was close to, who he might, be working behind, or the work he was doing was that maybe Soleimani was doing, and other top leaders who Israel Mossad has taken out. So, is this a mystery illness? Is there something that Mossad is doing in terms of asymmetric warfare, and ensuring that leaders disappear one after the other? This is just interesting news to see this, and you always got to question it. Did he die of natural causes, or was there any Israeli intervention related to that? So keep that in mind as you hear of other key military commanders of the Revolutionary Guard. If they're falling over ill for some reason, it could be biowarfare, and that is, I was going to say legitimate, but that is part of warfare. Any country that goes to war, if they can leverage biowarfare, they're going to do it. Bioweapons, and countries, COVID was a bioweapon. It was created in a lab in China, and in fact, it likely came from Canada, actually, a lab in Winnipeg. I hope this video doesn't get taken down for that, but that is the news coming out, that indeed there was cooperation going on between a Winnipeg virology lab and the lab in China, and also cooperation with, of course, Fauci and his group of advanced functionality, increased functionality virus folks. So they're all cooperating. And, it's nothing other than a bioweapon, effectively. This is interesting here. This is the GatewayPundit.com non-starter. Netanyahu slaps down Biden's major peace proposal. So it says, during the address of the White House, Biden unveiled a three-part plan for ending the conflict that involved an immediate ceasefire from Israeli forces before negotiating a permanent end to hostilities. Now, my question about this is, where is Biden coming up with a peace plan for Ukraine? They're very vocal about it in Israel. They're not standing by and not talking about peace in Israel. They're trying land for peace. They're trying to get Israel to stop. They're threatening to take away weapons and support. Do you hear that in Ukraine? You absolutely do not. You don't hear anything about peace. Folks, they don't want peace in Europe. There's a lot of money being made there. Just like they didn't want an easy solution during the last 4 years, they didn't want an off-the-shelf thing that you can take to lower your chances of being hospitalized, if you know what I mean. No, they wanted to go to a very, very expensive novel solution for that. Similar thing in war. Where there's money to be made, they're not going to take the easy way out, or maybe not the easy way, but they're not going to take the obvious way out and come to some agreement in terms of peace, or even land for peace, or at least even a ceasefire. Have you ever even heard of them talking about a ceasefire of all things they could be doing, that Biden could be doing? No, but he's going after Israel, isn't he? after a massive attack on Israel on October 7th. He doesn't want Israel going in there and doing what Israel feels they need to do. Interesting. This is Infowars.com, and let's go to reader here. Excess deaths in Cyprus linked to you know what, and that's what the government is saying. So that's interesting. Now, if you look around on the internet, you can find it. You'll find the exact same thing coming out of Japan, out of Norway, Scotland, UK, Britain. There's a lot of information coming out. All this is coming out. The truth is coming out. What's interesting and refreshing, but it ends up with a super polarized world, is that before the Lord returns, he wants everybody to come to the recognition and understanding that God exists and that they need salvation. And that means truth has to come out. Truth has to be revealed, because no one will be left without an excuse in the last days. That means all the eyes need to be opened, the veils pulled up, and everybody needs to see what the truth is. And then they will choose to accept it or reject it. And those that love the truth will accept it, and they will accept Jesus Christ. Those who hate the truth will not accept it, and they'll be telling a tale, a narrative, whatever it may be, or going after money. And that's exactly what's happening all through this. This is theconversation.com, and this is just something, this is 2019. This is just something to be aware of. The U.S. happens to have a history of testing biological weapons on the public. Isn't that interesting? From 2019. Remember, this was pre-pandemic, 2019, wasn't it? July 22nd. And infected ticks were used. They've used mosquitoes. They've used all sorts of things for bioweapons. And you even go back in history. History repeats itself. And you can go and read all about this, of spraying bacteria, over land, and all sorts of examples of this. Go to theconversation.com and search for testing biological weapons, and I'm sure you'll find it. But again, history repeats itself, and if you want to know what's going to happen in the future, go read what happened in the past. It's the same thing biblically as it is with world history. You go read the history books, things repeat over and over. Wars repeat for the same reason, or for slightly different reasons, even triggered in similar manners, such as the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. History repeats itself, and as the Jewish believe, pattern equals prophecy. Pattern is prophecy. So if you see a pattern in history, it will continue to happen, and it will happen in the future as well. So pattern is prophecy, and that's something to pay attention to in terms of the news that you're reading. The things that have happened in the past, you think the corruption is new. No, it's not. It's been happening forever in the past. Do you think it's going to happen in the future? Absolutely it is, because it's happened in the past over and over and over. So you need to be eyes wide open about this stuff. Question everything, and question it over and over until you feel for yourself that you understand the truth. Ask Jesus, ask the Lord for the truth, and he will open your eyes. He will send you the right people to talk to. He will help you to find the information. He will always help you to find truth. So this is interesting. And we get to the signs in the sun, moon, and stars. A parade of 6 planets will line up in the sky as the 6th month of 2024 begins. This is the end of the AmericanDream.com. Reading from Luke chapter 21. As it relates to the last days and what's going to happen just prior to the return of the Son of Man. It says, "And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations." Are we heading to a place of distress of nations? We are. With perplexity. The sea and the waves roaring. What an interesting detail, isn't it? Is that because, so-called climate change, or how about the earth is just warming because it was warm prior to the flood of Noah, and then the ice age came and it's been warming up ever since? Men's hearts failing them for fear of things coming upon them. Coming upon the earth, rather. This suggests that things are coming from outside of earth, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken, it says. Interesting. Something coming from the heavens. The power of the heavens will be shaken. Maybe like an apple tree. You shake the apple tree and all of a sudden things start falling, right? Comets, plants coming in close. It says in verse 27, and then they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. So that the Son of Man isn't going to come back until these things happen. The sun, there's signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and upon the earth distress of nations. Now, all these things take years, months, years, maybe even decades to kind of wind up to a place where, all the nations are in distress. And I think we're gearing up for that. We're winding up for that sort of thing. The pandemic was just the start. But the next thing is going to be, of course, World War III, nuclear weapons. I believe they're used. I believe the Bible speaks of them probably 3 or 4 times. And I have videos that I've done in the past where I've kind of go through the scriptures that sound like they're the result of nuclear fallout, nuclear weapons being used. But these things are all going to be here before the Son of Man comes. So we could be very well around for it. We won't be here for the wrath of God, but I don't believe the whole 7-year period is the wrath of God. I think the wrath of God starts when the sun goes dark and the moon turns black as sackcloth. That's in Revelation chapter 6, verse I think 12 or so. What happens prior to the wrath of God? Well, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? And that's a warning, and that's a result of man's sin and a result of man's wrath on man, if you will. That's the result of our sin, and not the wrath of God. And that involves famine, economic collapse, and World War III. Again, all things that man have caused because of their sin, because of their lack of faithfulness and looking for God. When God's wrath comes, folks, it will be supernatural. There will be absolutely zero question. I think for the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, there will be a way for man to talk away, that it's a supernatural thing or that it's spoken of in the Bible. There will be a way for man to say, well, it's just something we do. It's something we did so we can fix it, so we can be our own gods. We're going to, put a shield in front of the sun to stop the sun from shining, something like that. They're going to try and fix it on their own, but it's not going to work. But the wrath of God is going to be supernatural. It's going to be shock and awe, and we're going to know it's the wrath of God 100%. And that's when the wrath of God comes, he takes care of the Antichrist. But the Antichrist is going to rule and reign for 3.5 years before the abomination of desolation in the third temple. So the wrath of God doesn't come at the beginning of that 7-year period. So that being said, signs in the sun, moon, and stars. Dramatic things are happening on earth. Are happening in the heavens at the same time that dramatic things are happening here on earth. Are dramatic things happening on earth? Yes, we went through a massively dramatic thing all over the earth, and the next one is coming. It says, as I started to write this article, the entire nation learned that a New York jury found Trump guilty on all charges. Meanwhile, the coalition government in Israel has collapsed and appears there will be a new election by the end of this year. And all of this is taking place just as things are starting to get very interesting in the heavens once again. In fact, as the 6th month of 2024 begins, we are going to see a spectacular parade of 6 planets. So it says, point your eyes to the sky this June. Summer in the cosmos is off to a spectacular start due to astronomical activity taking place from the upcoming full moon display to a rare planetary alignment. And it goes on to say here, there are 7 other planets in the solar system. 6 of them will be involved in this parade. Is that maybe representing the 6,000 years of man? Isn't that interesting? Maybe is God showing us that, you know what? We're near the year 6,000. 6,000 years of man are done. When the 7th comes, look out. That's the millennial reign of Christ. Interesting, isn't it? It says just before dawn, from May 31st to June 3rd, a parade of 6 planets from our solar system will come into alignment, but only a lucky few will be able to spot all 6. The orbits of Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune will enter into something like a morning procession. Now, if you put a U in that and say MOURNING, morning procession, as if at a funeral, for example, wouldn't that be interesting? As a funeral of mankind at the end of mankind, 6,000 years, we're deep in sin. We are ready for the wrath of God, and we all deserve it. That's certainly sure. Without the blood of Christ, and these these planets, which 6 of them represent 6,000 years of man, are they literally a procession of mourning for human history and the bad job we've done of taking care of the Lord's planet? So interesting stuff. This is people.com. You can go to people.com and see the same thing and all these planets lined up. So signs in the sun, moon, and stars. Could we be seeing them right now? Are they happening? And most people are completely unaware that they're happening. I think they are. I think these should be a wake-up call and say, you know what? What's God trying to tell us about these 6 planets? Does this mean our 6,000 years is up? I think it is around the year 2028, plus or minus a few years, maybe 29, maybe 30, 2030, but somewhere in there, about 2,000 years after the death of Christ, however you want to calculate that exactly. But this could be a sign just before the return of the Lord. So interesting articles, some off the wall stuff that maybe we hadn't been covering. But I think it all points to the fact that we're in the last days. The Lord is coming soon. And the Bible is telling us what is going to happen in the future. You just got to read the Bible and then line it up with, what the headlines of the newspapers are effectively. And I think you'll see it if your eyes are opened and if you love the truth. Thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. We'll see you in the next video.